In this lesson, you will learn the basics of the XML Style Language or Xsl. You will also learn to use Xsl to specify how an XML document should be rendered on a display device. You know that one of the weaknesses of HTML was its focus on controlling presentation-related aspects of a document. Thus, XML is superior to HTML in some sense because it is only used to mark up the meaning of content and not how the content should look. When you create an XML document, you've really created an abstract document, one that has structure but not an exact form. An analogy might make this concept a little clearer. Consider that everyone has almost exactly the same structure, that is, heart, liver, arms, legs, etc. But our forms are all presented differently. Most of the times, XML documents will be processed by programs that prepare its form for display on a visual device such as a computer screen. It is also possible for an XML document to be processed for other presentation media. For example, a visually impaired user might want an XML document prepared for rendering by a browser that synthesizes speech or that prints in Braille. AltaVista might want to process your XML documents for inclusion in its search engine database. Or you might have to convert your documents to a word processor compatible format. The key point is that XML documents are not just intended for browsers. They are general enough to be converted for virtually any kind of rendering device. So now you are left with the question, how do I accomplish this conversion? And how do I control how my document looks on different rendering devices? The answer is to use the XML Style Language or Xsl. The proposed Xsl standard draws on the existing Cascading Style Sheet or CSS standard and also the Document Style Semantics and Specification Language or DSSSL, an ISO standard for specifying how a document should be formatted. By combining elements from these two standards, Xsl enables you to control the following processes. Transformation, how your document is transformed from an XML document to another structure that is appropriate to the rendering device. Formatting, once the document is converted into an appropriate structure, you can apply formatting and style instructions to specify exactly how the document should be rendered. Thus, applying styles to your XML documents is really a two-step process, a transformation step and a formatting step. You can accomplish both of these steps simultaneously with Xsl. The familiarity you have acquired with XML through this course will make it fairly easy for you to learn Xsl because Xsl is XML based. Additionally, if you are familiar with cascading style sheets, then you already know many of the presentation features like typeface, line spacing and margins that you can control using Xsl. What remains for you to learn is how to do the transformation step and how to apply style characteristics once the transformation has occurred. Because Xsl is an application of XML, you are free to make up your own elements to build an Xsl style sheet. For the purposes of this lesson, you will focus on a set of elements put forward by Microsoft in support of its Xsl processor, a program that uses Xsl style sheets to convert XML documents into HTML documents. By using an application that converts XML to to a format you understand well, you will be free to focus on the underlying XSL concepts. These same concepts can easily be generalized and extended to other settings where XML is converted to formats other than HTML. The fundamental component of an Xsl style sheet is the construction rule. Each construction rule in the style sheet has two parts: a pattern that tells the rule which XML elements it should operate on, and an action that tells the rule how to transform and format the elements targeted by the rule. Microsoft has proposed several Xsl elements available to assist you in authoring construction rules to transform XML to HTML. These include Xsl. The Xsl element is the root element of the style sheet. All other elements in the style sheet are contained between Xsl and /Xsl tags. Rule. Each construction rule is contained between its own set of rule and /rule tags. Target element /. This element enables you to specify which element or elements the rule applies to. Children /. By including the empty children /element in your rule, you tell the Xsl processor how to use the child elements of targeted elements in the rule's action. You also instruct the Xsl processor to recursively process elements that are children of a target element. The Xsl processor is case sensitive, so it is important to use lowercase letters for both element keywords and attributes. Let us look at the basic syntax of an Xsl rule. You set the type attribute of the target -element / equal to the name of the element you want the rule to target. For the case of converting XML to HTML, the action you specify would indicate which HTML tags to use in place of the target element. To develop some example Xsl style sheets, it is necessary to first have an XML document to apply style information to. Let us consider the following XML code, which represents the marking up of a fictitious book on XML. If you wanted to publish this book to the web, then you would just need to write an Xsl style sheet that the Microsoft Xsl processor can use together with the XML code to convert the entire book to HTML. To begin this process, suppose you knew that you wanted to format all titles in the book in boldface, then you could use the following construction rule. In this construction rule, the target -element selects any XML element with a keyword of title and formats it with the HTML div tag you see in the action part of the rule. Further, the font weight specification is built into the div tag with the style attribute so that the title is rendered in boldface type. The action portion of the construction rule is shown here. The HTML div tag is called a flow object of the action. The various flow objects in an action are used to create the structure of the output, in this case an HTML file. When using the Xsl processor, all of your flow objects will be HTML tags of some sort. But when you start to write Xsl style sheets for other processing applications, you will likely be using other markup elements as flow objects, possibly even XML markup elements. For example, you might be transforming the target XML document into a synchronized multimedia integration language or SMIL presentation. In that case, the flow objects would be tags taken from the SMIL standard. When you run the XML code for the book through the Xsl processor using this rule, all of the title elements in the XML document would be reformatted as shown here. The rule selects any title element without regard to its position in the document. While you would very likely want all instances of a title to be rendered in boldface, you probably would not want a chapter title to be rendered in the same font size as the book title. Fortunately, we can use Xsl to key in on certain instances of an element. Because the title elements that mark up a chapter title are necessarily inside of a chapter element, we can use element to tell the Xsl processor to apply the rule only to title elements that occur within a chapter element. The modified construction rule would appear like this. Using this rule, only chapter titles would be rendered in bold 18-point type. The formatting would not be applied to the book title. If you wanted to format the book title in a special way, you could zero in on the title element using the construction rule shown here. When the Xsl processor begins to process an Xsl Stylesheet, it looks for a special construction rule called the root rule. The root rule is used to indicate the top-level flow object in the output structure. Since the Xsl processor produces HTML documents as output, it would make sense to use a root rule as shown here. The root / element indicates that the rule is to be used as the root rule. The rule produces the HTML tags used to define the basic structure of an HTML document. The results of processing the children of the top-level element in the XML document will be placed between the body and /body tags. To prevent the Xsl processor from stopping when it encounters an element for which it has no construction rules, the program comes with a built-in default rule that is automatically used. The default rule is as shown here. The target -element /element without a type attribute acts as a catch-all for any elements that do not have a construction rule available to format them. The action in the default rule says to do nothing to the element and to continue processing the children of the element. This allows the recursive processing of the elements in the XML document to continue, even if the Xsl processor does not know how to handle one of the elements. If you don't specify a root rule, the Xsl processor will use the default root rule shown here. This rule places the results from processing the document inside of div and /div tags. The any element can be used as a wildcard to select all instances of an element or any immediate children of an element. In the book example, you could use a construction rule like this to select any immediate children of an instance of the body element. If you were targeting chapter elements that are immediate children of a body element, you would modify the rule as shown here. In this case, the target -element /element uses a type attribute to key in on only the chapter elements. If you want to apply the same action to several different elements, you don't need to type out a separate rule for each one. Rather, you can simply use multiple target -element /elements to specify which elements should receive the formatting. For example, look at this construction rule. This would color titles, the author's name, and the table of contents red. If you are familiar with cascading style sheets, you'll know that the cascading part of the name refers to the fact that you can apply multiple styles to the same tag and rely on the cascading priorities built into the standard to resolve which style takes precedence. No such cascading priorities exist in the Xsl standard, so you need to be careful to define construction rules that target elements as precisely as possible. The Xsl processor does have some decision processes built in for handling potential rule conflicts. Stated generally, the processor gives precedence to the rule that has the most specific pattern. As an example, consider the style sheet shown here. The first rule will select any title element in the document, whereas the second rule will only select title elements that are children of chapter elements. The second rule has a more specific pattern than the first, so when it comes to formatting a title element that is a child of a chapter element, the second rule takes precedence and the title will be rendered in bold. Xsl is still a work in progress and is subject to change. The W3C's Xsl working group is already working on adding several other features to Xsl, including scripting. It will be possible to embed ECMA script, standardized JavaScript, into an Xsl style sheet, allowing you to dynamically compute different styles of characteristics. Flow object macros. Macros will allow you to develop reusable style sheet components that can be referenced from other rules within the style sheet. Extensible flow object types. The Microsoft Xsl processor only used HTML elements as flow objects. In a more general setting, you can expect that the flow objects allowable under Xsl will themselves be extensible. This will permit you to produce transformed documents that are structurally more generic than an HTML document. To keep abreast of the latest developments in the evolution of Xsl, visit the W3C's Xsl page at http://www.w3.org/style/xsl regularly.